A poor student returned a lost wallet, not knowing it belonged to the CEO offering her a dream job. This single act of honesty would alter the course of Ellie Morgan's life in ways she couldn't possibly imagine as she hurried through the rain-soaked campus that Wednesday afternoon, her worn sneakers splashing through puddles that reflected a gray, unforgiving sky. 23 and drowning in debt, Ellie clutched her threadbare jacket tighter around her thin frame. The library had closed early due to a power outage, another setback in a week already overflowing with them. Her part-time waitressing job barely covered rent for the cramped studio apartment she shared with a constantly rotating cast of roommates, let alone her mounting student loans. The scholarship that had initially brought her to Westlake University had run dry last semester, leaving her scrambling to finish her final year in environmental engineering. 3 eviction notices had appeared on her door this month alone. The most recent one, delivered just this morning, had been accompanied by her roommate's hurried departure, taking with her half the rent money Ellie had scraped together from double shifts and donated plasma. "Keep moving, just keep moving," she whispered to herself, a mantra that had carried her through the hardest days. Ever since her father's death 2 years ago, leaving her truly alone in the world, Ellie had learned that forward motion was sometimes the only defense against collapse. The rain intensified, drumming against her shoulders and plastering her dark hair to her face. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the empty campus walkway. Most students had retreated to dorms or apartments hours ago, but Ellie had stayed until the library's final warning lights flickered out. Her midterm project was due tomorrow, a comprehensive proposal for sustainable urban development that counted for 40% of her grade. She splashed through another puddle, cursing as cold water soaked through her canvas shoes. That's when she saw it, a sleek leather wallet lying abandoned on the path ahead, already growing sodden from the downpour. Ellie slowed, glancing around. The walkway remained deserted, not a single soul in sight. She approached cautiously, then crouched down. The wallet was expensive, the kind of buttery leather that seemed to whisper of boardrooms and important decisions. Nothing like anything she or anyone she knew would carry. She picked it up, feeling its unexpected weight. Common sense told her to turn it into campus security, but their office had closed hours ago. She stood, indecisive, rain streaming down her face, mingling with tears of frustration she hadn't realized she'd been shedding. Opening the wallet revealed several credit cards, a driver's license, and a thick wad of cash that made her breath catch. More money than she'd seen in one place since her father's funeral. The ID photo showed a distinguished-looking man with steel-gray eyes and salt-and-pepper hair, Alexander Donovan. The address listed was in the exclusive Hillcrest neighborhood, miles away from her own struggling corner of the city. For one breathless moment, Ellie calculated what that cash could mean. Rent paid, groceries for weeks, maybe even her overdue tuition installment. No one would know. The man in the photo clearly wouldn't miss it. People like him never did. Her fingers trembled as they hovered over the bills. Then she remembered her father's voice. "Character is what you do when no one is watching, Ellie girl." With a deep breath that fogged in the cold air, she closed the wallet and slipped it into her backpack. She would find this Alexander Donovan tomorrow, after her presentation, after she figured out how to avoid homelessness for another month. Exhausted, she trudged the remaining half-mile to her apartment building, a dilapidated structure with perpetually broken elevators and temperamental heating. The 5th-floor walk-up left her winded, her legs burning as she fumbled with her keys. Inside, the apartment was dark and eerily quiet without her roommate's constant Netflix streaming. The silence amplified the hollow feeling in Ellie's chest. She flicked on the lights, revealing the half-empty space. Her roommate had taken the microwave and television along with the rent money. Ellie dropped her soaked backpack carefully on the kitchen counter, mindful of the laptop inside that contained her entire academic life. She peeled off her wet clothes, changed into her only pair of dry sweatpants, and wrapped herself in the quilt her grandmother had made before Alzheimer's erased all memory of fabrics and patterns and granddaughters, with dreams too big for their circumstances. Sleep eluded her. The wallet seemed to pulse with silent energy from inside her backpack. At 3 a.m. she gave up, padded to the kitchen, and removed it. She searched the name online. Alexander Donovan wasn't just wealthy. He was Alexander Donovan, CEO of Donovan Sustainability Innovations, one of the largest green technology companies in the country. Ellie's field of study. Her dream employer. The irony wasn't lost on her. Tomorrow she would present a project on sustainable urban development, and here in her hands was the wallet of a man who could make those dreams reality. A man who would never know her name or care about her ideas. Morning arrived with harsh sunlight and no solutions. Ellie rehearsed her presentation while brewing the last of her coffee. The wallet sat on her counter, a glossy reminder of worlds that existed beyond her reach. Her phone buzzed with a text from Professor Williams. Meeting moved up. Presentation at 10 a.m., not 2 p.m. Representatives from industry attending. Professional dress strongly advised. Panic surged through her. Industry representatives? The only professional outfit she owned was currently wadded in the bottom of her laundry bag, unwashed from last week's failed job interview. Her heart raced as she dumped the bag out, frantically smoothing wrinkles from the navy blazer and matching pants. They would have to do. Campus was transformed in the morning light, steam rising from sun-warmed puddles. Ellie clutched her portfolio in one hand and the wallet in the other, having decided to drop it at campus security before her presentation. Her worn messenger bag bounced against her hip with each hurried step. The security office had a line. Of course it did. By the time she reached the front, her watch showed 9:47. 13 minutes until her academic future was decided. "I found this wallet yesterday," she explained breathlessly to the bored-looking security officer. "Fill out this form," he said, sliding a clipboard toward her. "I can't. I have a presentation in 10 minutes that will determine if I graduate. Can I just leave it?" The officer sighed. "Protocol says, please," Ellie interrupted, desperation edging her voice. "It belongs to Alexander Donovan. There's cash inside." "I didn't take anything. I really need to go." At the mention of the name, the officer's eyebrows rose. "Donovan? As in, the guy whose company is doing the Innovation Center groundbreaking today?" Ellie's stomach dropped. "What groundbreaking?" "Big ceremony. President of the university, city officials, the whole shebang. Starting at 10 o'clock on the North Quad, the same time as her presentation, in the building directly adjacent to where she needed to be. She left the wallet, scribbling her contact information hastily on the form, and sprinted across campus, her too large blazer flapping around her like awkward wings. She arrived at the classroom flushed and breathless, only to find Professor Williams standing outside, his expression grim. "We've been relocated," he said. "The presentation will take place in the Innovation Hall conference room." He eyed her disheveled appearance with disapproval. "Try to pull yourself together, Ms. Morgan. This is extremely important. Innovation Hall, where the groundbreaking ceremony would be happening. Where Alexander Donovan would be, where his wallet now sat in security, with her name attached to it." Ellie followed her professor across the quad, attempting to smooth her hair and straighten her blazer. Other students from her program, all impeccably dressed, walked briskly alongside them. The contrast between their polished appearances and her own rumpled state wasn't lost on her. The conference room was intimidating, all glass and chrome, with a sweeping view of the quad where a podium and chairs had been arranged for the ceremony. Distinguished-looking men and women in expensive suits mingled around a refreshment table. "Each of you will have 15 minutes," Professor Williams announced to the gathered students. "The panel includes faculty and special guests from Donovan Sustainability Innovations, who may be considering candidates for their internship program." Ellie's heart stuttered. DSI internships were legendary, fully paid, with housing stipends and nearly guaranteed job offers upon graduation. She'd applied 3 times over the years and never received so much as an acknowledgement. The presentations began. Ellie was scheduled last, a placement that normally would have given her time to compose herself, but now only prolonged her agony. She watched the door, half expecting security to burst in at any moment, announcing her as some kind of thief. Through the window, she could see the ceremony beginning. A tall man with familiar salt and pepper hair stepped up to the podium. Alexander Donovan, in person. Her palms began to sweat. One by one, her classmates delivered polished presentations with sleek graphics and confident voices. Ellie tried to focus on her notes, but her mind kept returning to the wallet, to the money inside that could have solved so many problems, to the choice she'd made in the rain. "Ellie Morgan," Professor Williams called finally. "You're up." She stood on shaky legs, connected her laptop to the projector and took a deep breath. The faces staring back at her blurred together, except for one. A woman with sharp eyes and a sharper bob cut was studying her intently from the back of the room. "Good morning," Ellie began, her voice steadier than she felt. My project explores sustainable housing solutions for low-income communities, with a focus on adaptive reuse of abandoned industrial spaces. As she spoke, something shifted inside her. This wasn't just an academic exercise, this was personal. She knew what it meant to live in housing that was falling apart, to choose between heat and food, to see neighbors displaced by gentrification. Her voice grew stronger, her gestures more assured. The people in these communities don't need our pity, she said, abandoning her prepared notes. They need our partnership. They need sustainable solutions that respect their dignity and their right to remain in their homes. The room had grown very quiet. Even Professor Williams was watching her with an expression of surprised respect. My proposal incorporates community land trusts, passive solar design principles, and microgrid technology to create housing that is not only affordable, but regenerative, giving back more than it takes. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before the questions began. Probing, challenging questions that Ellie answered with unexpected confidence born of genuine conviction. As the session concluded, the woman with the sharp bob approached. Ms. Morgan, isn't it? I'm Vivian Chen, Director of Innovation at DSI. She handed Ellie a business card. Your presentation was refreshingly authentic. We should talk. Before Ellie could respond, commotion erupted in the hallway. The door swung open, and the security officer from earlier entered, followed by none other than Alexander Donovan himself. I apologize for the interruption, the officer said, scanning the room. We're looking for Ellie Morgan? Every head turned toward her. Her cheeks burned. That's me, she said, stepping forward. Alexander Donovan studied her, his expression unreadable. You found my wallet? It wasn't a question. Ellie nodded, painfully aware of her wrinkled clothes and scuffed shoes. Yes, sir. Last night? In the rain. With quite a sum of cash inside. Another nod. Her throat had gone dry. Which you turned in. Intact. His eyes never left her face. May I ask why? The room had gone completely silent. Professor Williams looked like he might faint. Vivian Chen watched the exchange with keen interest. Ellie swallowed hard. It was the right thing to do. Even though he consulted a paper in his hand. According to the information you provided to security, you're facing eviction and are behind on tuition payments. Humiliation washed over her in a hot wave. He'd read the form where she'd listed her contact information. Of course she'd put her address, the apartment she'd likely lose by the end of the week. Mr. Donovan? Professor Williams began, clearly mortified. I'm sure we can... Please. Donovan raised a hand, silencing him. I'd like to hear Ms. Morgan's answer. Ellie lifted her chin, finding a reservoir of dignity she didn't know she possessed. Yes, even though I could have used that money. It wasn't mine to use. Something in Donovan's expression shifted, a softening around the eyes, perhaps. I lost that wallet rushing to a hospital yesterday. My daughter was in a car accident. I didn't even realize it was missing until this morning. Is she okay? Ellie asked immediately, personal embarrassment forgotten. The question seemed to surprise him. Yes. Yes, she will be. Thank you for asking. He glanced at the business card still clutched in Ellie's hand. I see you've met Vivian. Just now, sir, Chen replied. Ms. Morgan gave quite the presentation. Donovan nodded thoughtfully. I'd like to continue this conversation, Ms. Morgan, but perhaps in a more appropriate setting. Would you be available to meet at my office tomorrow? Say 2 p.m.? Ellie's mind raced. She had a double shift at the diner tomorrow, shifts she desperately needed. But this was Alexander Donovan. Yes, sir. I'll be there. Excellent. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Ms. Morgan? That eviction notice. Consider it handled. A small token of my appreciation. Before she could process what he'd said, he was gone, leaving a wake of whispers and wide eyes behind him. Vivian Chen smiled, the first real smile Ellie had seen from her. Well, Ms. Morgan, I'd say your luck is changing. I'll see you tomorrow. The next 24 hours passed in a blur. Ellie called her landlord, who confirmed that yes, someone had paid not only her back rent but 3 months in advance. She tried to make sense of what was happening, why a billionaire CEO would take such interest in a struggling student who'd simply returned his wallet. The DSI headquarters downtown was a gleaming tower of glass and sustainable innovation. Living walls of greenery flanked the entrance, and the roof sparkled with solar panels. Ellie, wearing the same navy suit freshly cleaned at a 24-hour laundromat, felt like an imposter as she approached the reception desk. Ellie Morgan for Mr. Donovan, she said, her voice smaller than she intended. The receptionist smiled warmly. "Yes, Ms. Morgan. You're expected." 18th floor. The elevator whisked her upward, her stomach seeming to stay somewhere around the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, Vivian Chen was waiting. "Right on time," she said approvingly. "Alexander appreciates punctuality." She led Ellie through an open workspace humming with activity. Young professionals huddled around sustainable design models and digital renderings of projects that made Ellie's academic work seem childishly simple in comparison. "Nervous?" Vivian asked as they approached a glass-walled conference room. "Terrified," Ellie admitted. Vivian's laugh was unexpectedly warm. "Good. Healthy fear keeps us honest." Alexander Donovan stood as they entered, extending his hand. "Ms. Morgan, thank you for coming." "Thank you for the invitation," Ellie replied, summoning every ounce of professionalism she possessed. "And for what you did with my rent. It was incredibly generous. It was the least I could do." He gestured for her to sit. "I had security send me a recording of your presentation yesterday. I found it illuminating." Ellie's cheeks warmed. "I went off script a bit. That's precisely what interested me." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Ms. Morgan, why environmental engineering?" The question surprised her. She'd expected discussion of the wallet, perhaps an offer of reward money, not genuine interest in her career choice. "My father," she said simply. "He worked maintenance at a chemical plant. The company cut corners on safety protocols, especially in the areas where low-wage workers spent their days. He died of cancer 2 years ago. 23 others from his department have been diagnosed." She hadn't meant to be so blunt, but something about Donovan's direct gaze pulled the truth from her. "I'm very sorry," he said, and she believed him. "That's why your presentation stood out. You spoke about dignity, about partnership rather than charity. Most students your age talk about sustainability as an abstract good, not as a matter of justice." Vivian slid a folder across the table. "We've been developing a pilot program for exactly the kind of community-based solutions you described. Urban retrofitting with community ownership models." Ellie opened the folder, scanning documents that outlined a vision remarkably similar to her own proposal, but with the resources and scale only a company like DSI could provide. "We need someone to lead the community engagement aspect," Donovan continued. "Someone who understands both the technical requirements and the human elements. Someone with integrity." Ellie looked up sharply. "Are you offering me a job?" "An internship initially," Vivian clarified, "but with a clear path to permanent employment upon graduation. Full salary, benefits, and we'll cover your remaining tuition." "Why me?" Ellie couldn't stop herself from asking. "You have hundreds of applicants with better credentials." "Credentials can be acquired," Donovan said. "Character cannot." "This isn't because I returned your wallet?" Donovan smiled slightly. "The wallet brought you to my attention. Your work, your perspective, and yes, your integrity are why we're having this conversation. Let me be clear, this isn't charity, Ms. Morgan. This is recruitment." Ellie studied their faces, looking for signs of pity or condescension. Instead, she found only professional interest and genuine regard. "When would this start?" she asked. "As soon as you can wrap up your academic requirements," Vivian said. "We understand you have 1 semester remaining." Ellie's mind raced. With tuition covered and a real income, she could focus entirely on her studies for the first time in years. She could graduate on time with honors. She could finally begin to build the future her father had sacrificed so much to make possible. "I accept," she said, her voice steadier than she'd expected. Donovan extended his hand again. "Welcome to DSI, Ms. Morgan. I think this is the beginning of something important." As they shook hands, Ellie felt something shift inside her, as if a door long stuck had finally swung open. The following months transformed Ellie's life in ways that still sometimes felt unreal. Her final semester passed in a whirlwind of academic success and preparation for her new role. DSI provided a modest but comfortable apartment near their headquarters, a place all her own with reliable heat and no roommates taking midnight flights with the rent money. Her internship began the Monday after graduation. The Community Retrofit Project, officially named RISE, Regenerative Infrastructure for Sustainable Environments, became her life's focus. Ellie threw herself into the work with the same determination that had carried her through years of struggle. What she hadn't expected was how Alexander Donovan would become not just her employer, but her mentor. He joined her for community meetings in neighborhoods similar to the one where she'd grown up, listening as she translated complex sustainability concepts into practical benefits for skeptical residents. "You bridge worlds," he told her after one particularly successful meeting. "That's a rare gift, Ellie." It was the first time he'd used her first name. It felt like a milestone, though she couldn't have explained why. Summer faded into fall, and the Rise project expanded from concept to reality. Ground was broken on the first community site, an abandoned warehouse district being transformed into mixed-income housing, with shared green spaces and community-owned solar infrastructure. As Christmas approached, Ellie found herself in Donovan's office for their weekly update meeting. She had grown more comfortable in the gleaming tower, though she never forgot the journey that had brought her here. "I have something for you," Donovan said as their meeting concluded. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small, wrapped package. "Sir, you didn't need to—" "Alexander, please," he corrected gently. "After 6 months, I think we're past, sir." Ellie smiled. Alexander. The name still felt foreign on her tongue. She accepted the package and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a leather wallet, not unlike the one she'd found that rainy night, but smaller, sized for a woman's purse. Her initials were embossed in the corner in simple, elegant script. "I thought it was time you had something worthy of the professional you've become," he said. Ellie ran her fingers over the soft leather. "It's beautiful." "Thank you." "There's something inside," he prompted. She opened it to find a photograph. A young Alexander Donovan, no more than 20, standing proudly beside an older man in work clothes. They were in front of a small house with a sagging porch. "My father," Alexander explained, his voice softening. "He worked 3 jobs to put me through college. Never complained, never wanted recognition, just believed in me when no one else did." Ellie looked up, surprised by this glimpse into his past. "You never mentioned that I came from nothing?" His smile was wry. "It's not the story most people expect from someone in my position. It's why you paid my rent, isn't it? Why you gave me this chance. You saw yourself." Alexander leaned back, considering her. "Perhaps partly, but never mistake this for charity, Ellie. You've more than proven your worth to this company. The Rise project is succeeding because of you." A comfortable silence fell between them. "I never showed anyone that photo," he said finally. "Not even Vivian, and she's been with me since the beginning." "Why me?" "Because you understand that success isn't just about rising above your circumstances. It's about creating a world where fewer people have to overcome them in the first place." Ellie felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "This is the first Christmas without my dad," she admitted. "I've been dreading it." Alexander nodded. "The first one is the hardest. It gets not easier exactly, but different. You find ways to honor them by living fully." "Is that what you did?" "I tried." His eyes grew distant. "I built this company to create the changes he never lived to see. Clean energy, sustainable communities, technologies that protect workers instead of exploiting them." He focused on her again. "But I've failed in important ways too." "Your daughter?" Ellie ventured, remembering the hospital rush that had caused him to lose his wallet. "Clara," he nodded, 21 and barely speaking to me. "The accident happened because she was rushing home from college after I canceled our plans." Again. "I'm sorry." "She's right to be angry. I've prioritized changing the world over being present in hers." He straightened, as if catching himself revealing too much. "Forgive me. I didn't mean to burden you with personal matters." "It's not a burden," Ellie said simply. "It's human." Something shifted in Alexander's expression, a vulnerability she'd never seen before. "Clara is coming home for Christmas. I've cleared my schedule completely. First time in, well, longer than I care to admit. That's a good start." "I hope so." He hesitated. "What about you? Any plans?" Ellie shook her head. "Not really. My roommate from university invited me to her family's place, but it felt too intrusive. No one should be alone at Christmas," Alexander said decisively. "Join us, Clara and me. It's just a small dinner at home, nothing elaborate." The invitation caught her off guard. "Oh, I couldn't impose—" "You wouldn't be?" "In fact," he looked almost sheepish. "Clara specifically asked to meet you. I may have mentioned your story once or twice." Ellie raised an eyebrow. "Once or twice? Perhaps more." His smile was genuine. "You made quite an impression, Missy." "Morgan?" 2 days later, Ellie stood nervously on the doorstep of Alexander Donovan's home, a surprisingly modest house in a quiet neighborhood far from the ostentatious mansions she'd expected. She clutched a small gift bag containing homemade cookies, a tradition her father had always insisted upon. "Never visit empty-handed," he'd say. Alexander opened the door himself, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a far cry from his usual impeccable suits. "Ellie, come in, please." The house was warm and inviting, decorated tastefully for the season with natural greenery and soft white lights. A Christmas tree stood in the corner of the living room, adorned with what looked like handmade ornaments spanning decades. "My father's house," Alexander explained, catching her surveying the surroundings. "I bought it after he passed. Couldn't bear to see someone else living here." Before Ellie could respond, a young woman appeared in the doorway to what appeared to be the kitchen. She had Alexander's gray eyes but softer features. A healing cut was visible above her right eyebrow, a remnant of the accident. "You must be Ellie," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "I'm Clara. Dad won't shut up about you and your magical community whispering powers." "Clara," Alexander warned, but with affection. "What?" "It's true. It's Ellie this and Ellie that every time we talk." She grinned. "Which is a lot more frequently these days, so I'm not complaining." Dinner was surprisingly relaxed, a simple but delicious meal that Clara had apparently prepared. The conversation flowed easily, moving from work to Clara's studies in marine biology to shared stories of fathers who had shaped their lives through sacrifice and belief. "He used to quiz me on facts about sea creatures during breakfast," Clara recalled, gesturing toward Alexander. "Total nerd dad mode. He'd make flashcards and everything." "Your mother always said I was insufferable," Alexander admitted. "But you loved it." "I did," Clara acknowledged softly. "I missed that dad." A look passed between father and daughter, something healing, something hopeful. After dinner, they exchanged simple gifts. Ellie was mortified that all she'd brought were cookies, but Clara's delight upon tasting them was genuine. "These are incredible," she declared. "You're officially in charge of Christmas cookies from now on." "From now on?" The phrase hung in the air, an invitation to belong, to be part of something ongoing. Alexander handed Ellie a small envelope. Inside was a certificate stating that a scholarship had been established in her father's name at Westlake University, specifically for children of industrial workers affected by workplace contamination. "It's funded in perpetuity," he explained. "One student per year will receive full tuition and living expenses." Ellie couldn't speak. Her vision blurred as tears welled up. "Too much?" Alexander asked quietly. "I worried it might be." "No," she managed finally. "It's perfect." "He would've..." She swallowed hard. "Thank you. I don't know what else to say." Clara reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Welcome to the family of fatherless daughters and daughterless fathers," she said with gentle humor. "We're all works in progress here." Later, as they sat by the fire, Ellie realized she hadn't thought about her loss or her loneliness for hours. Instead, she'd been fully present, embraced by an unexpected warmth that felt, against all odds, like belonging. "I should get going," she said eventually, though reluctantly. "Thank you both for everything." "I'll drive you," Alexander offered. "No need to trouble yourself. I can call a rideshare." "It's no trouble," he insisted. "I'd like to." The night was clear and cold, stars visible in a way they rarely were in the city center. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. "Clara likes you," Alexander said finally. "She doesn't warm to people easily." "Not anymore. I like her too. She's remarkably resilient, like someone else I know." He glanced at her briefly before returning his eyes to the road. "This scholarship? I hope you know it's not just about honoring your father. It's about acknowledging what you've brought to DSI, to the RISE project, to me." "What do you mean?" He seemed to choose his words carefully. "I'd forgotten certain truths about myself. About why I started this company. You reminded me." They arrived at her apartment building, a world away from her previous living situation, but still modest. Alexander insisted on walking her to her door, a gesture that felt both old-fashioned and oddly comforting. "Merry Christmas, Ellie," he said as they reached her doorway. "Merry Christmas, Alexander." She hesitated, then impulsively hugged him, a quick professional embrace that nonetheless carried genuine gratitude. As she entered her apartment and closed the door behind her, Ellie was struck by how different this Christmas Eve was from what she had anticipated. Instead of solitary grief, she had found unexpected connection. Instead of dwelling on what she had lost, she had glimpsed what might still be possible. She placed the certificate for her father's scholarship on her bedside table, where it would be the first thing she saw in the morning, a bridge between past and future. A reminder that sometimes the simplest acts of integrity can open doors we never imagined existed. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, silent, transforming. Ellie watched the flakes dance in the streetlight's glow and felt for the first time in years that sense of wonder that Christmas had once held. Not because her circumstances had magically improved, though they had. Not because she'd found professional success, though that too was true. But because she had discovered that even in a world of loss and struggle, connection remained possible, healing remained possible, new beginnings remained possible, all because of a wallet dropped in the rain, a choice made in darkness, a recognition of shared humanity that transcended circumstance. Spring brought the grand opening of the first RISE community development. Residents, many of whom had initially viewed the project with suspicion, proudly guided visitors through homes designed for both efficiency and dignity. Children played in community gardens planted where concrete had once cracked and heaved. Ellie stood at the periphery, watching Alexander cut the ceremonial ribbon. Clara beside him, their relationship visibly mended through months of small efforts and growing understanding. Vivian caught Ellie's eye across the crowd and gave her a thumbs up. This was just the beginning. 5 more RISE developments were already in planning stages across the country. Ellie's team had grown from 3 to 15, her confidence along with it. The scholarship in her father's name had selected its first recipient, a brilliant young woman whose mother had worked alongside him at the plant. As the crowd dispersed, Alexander made his way to her side. "Not going to join the celebration?" Ellie smiled. "Just taking it in. Sometimes I still can't believe all of this started because I picked up a wallet in the rain." "I've been thinking about that," he said thoughtfully. "What if it wasn't chance? What if some part of me knew I needed to find you, to remember where I came from? That's quite a mystical interpretation from a CEO known for data-driven decisions," she teased. "Perhaps," his eyes crinkled, "or perhaps it's simply that when we act from integrity, we create possibilities that calculations can't predict." Together they watched as residents and visitors mingled, barriers of class and circumstance temporarily dissolved in shared appreciation of something new and hopeful taking root. "My father would have loved this," Ellie said softly. "Mine too," Alexander agreed. In that moment, standing amid the physical manifestation of dreams made real, Ellie understood that the greatest act of honesty hadn't been returning the wallet. It had been remaining true to herself, to her origins, her principles, her capacity for hope, even when circumstances had tempted her to abandon them. The wallet had been just a beginning. What followed was a testament to the transformative power of human connection, of second chances seized, of wounds slowly healing through purposeful work and genuine care. And as Clara bounded over to join them, linking arms with both Ellie and her father, forming a circle of chosen family where once there had been only isolated grief, Ellie knew with absolute certainty that some losses, while never erased, could be answered with new forms of love. Not as replacements for what was gone, but as evidence that the heart's capacity to connect remains undiminished, even in the face of life's harshest challenges. That was the true miracle, not the job or the security or even the success of RISE, but the discovery that integrity creates its own kind of gravity, drawing together lives that might otherwise never have intersected. A poor student had returned a lost wallet, not knowing it belonged to the CEO offering her a dream job. But what she found was something far greater than employment. She found her way back to belief, in herself, in possibilities, in the enduring power of small, honest choices to change not just a life, but a community, a future, a world.